Hello all, let's start our new chapter, chapter 7. And in this chapter, we are going to talk about lists and tuples. So basically the types of sequences that we have and that we are going to discuss in this chapter, in this course using Python. So basically a sequence is nothing but an object that contains multiple objects. So it's like basically that contains multiple items of data. So this type of data can be of various data types. So it could be a mix of both numbers and alphabets as well. So Python provides different types of sequences, including lists and tuples. So the basic difference between the lists and tuples, which we are going to cover in this chapter, is the lists are mutable, so you can make changes to your existing contents of your lists. But for tuples, you cannot make any changes to your tuples. So that is, we will see how to, but there is a technique where you can copy a tuple or where you can convert a tuple into a list and then make some changes to it. We'll see how we can do that in the next following contents. But for now, all you have to get that is lists are mutable, so which can be changed, modified, add, remove contents, edit the contents. But for tuples, you cannot do many of the operations that you can do with the lists because those are immutable. So now when we are talking about list, as list is also a type of sequence from what we have gained earlier. So list is an object that contains multiple data items. So, and we have already discussed that lists are mutables. So the contents can be changed depending upon the program's execution or depending upon the application that we are working on. So lists are basically dynamic data structures. So again, that means that they are mutable. So you'll be introduced with the concepts of indexing, slicing, and various methods to work with lists in a program in this chapter. So basically, a list is an object that contains multiple data items. So this data item is also called as an element in a list. So the format is your variable list is equal to, you will start with the square brackets, item 1, comma, item 2, comma, item 3, so on and so forth, till you're done with the number of elements in your list. As I've mentioned before, lists can hold different types of data. So there is no limitation with respect to integers or floating point numbers or strings. Lists can have a mix of all the three different data types that we have covered till now. So print function is used to print the entire contents of a list. And list function, like this list followed by open and close parentheses, is used to convert the objects into lists. So this is similar to your int and float functions and str, that is string function as well. So whatever that you are trying to convert, you will be having that as an argument in between the parentheses of the function call. So after this execution, whatever, let's say x is your argument in this list function. And after this operation, x will now be converted into a list. So you do know the working of int, float, and str functions. It is similar to that, except you have a different keyword, that is list here, because you're trying to convert a certain data type into a list data type. So here is an example of list of all integers. So you have even numbers is equal to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, which are again placed inside the square brackets. And each element is separated by using a comma. Same thing with names. So you have all the string data representation here. And here info is a mix of different data types. So you have string, Alicia, integer 27, and floating point number 1550.87 as your third element in your list. And also when you are counting the total number of elements, you will be starting with 1, 2, and 3. That is how we count the contents, right? That will become the length of the list. We will see how to determine the length by using the len function and everything in the next few slides. But as I'm here, I want to introduce this concept of indexing as well. So basically the Alicia, the string element is your first element, which has the index 0. Because remember, we are going to count with from zeros. So that is how we have learned in from chapter 1 as well. So the first element will have the positional value or index 0. The second position or the second element will have the index 1. The third element will have the index 2. So if the length or if the total number of elements in a list are, let's say 5, then the index of the fifth element will be 4. I hope that's clear, but again, we'll go through these concepts in the next slides as well. So you can use the print function. So numbers is equal to 5, 10, 15, 20. When you just use the print function and you have the variable that is assigned to your list, you'll see the entire contents of your list displayed as your output. So you can always use the list function, and you can convert the range, the output of the range of 5 into a list by using the statement. So list of range of 5, that will give you 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we are familiar with range functions. If this range functions looks brand new to you, then go back to chapter 5 and then understand the concept of range function as well. It should not look new to you. You have already discussed and we have done multiple programs on the same. Next, if you want to create with 3 elements inside the range function with 3 arguments, that is how you will write. Next, we have the repetition operator. That is basically the multiplication symbol or the hashtag symbol. So I'm just going to call it a star. So this multiplication symbol is also used as a repetition operator that will just make multiple copies of the list and it will just join them together. So we'll see an example for better understanding as well. So for the general format will be the sequence towards the left operator. So that is towards the left side of the operator, the left operand, and the right operand will be the total number of times that you want the list to be repeated. So you can always use the for loop to iterate over each element in the list. That is by using for x in list itself. So list here is your variable that is assigned to hold your list. So this can be for x in numbers from the previous example here. This can be for x in numbers, print x. So you will be seeing 5, 10, 15, 20 in 4 different lines because you are accessing each element of your list and you are printing that element. That is the basic working of a for loop. But the only new thing is if when you are using a sequence that is list in this case, you can just directly have that name of the variable that which is assigned to your list here. Okay. So here is an example with the repetition operator. So let's say you want to create a list of 5 zeros. So instead of creating numbers is equal to open square bracket 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you can just directly have numbers is equal to one single element list with 0 as its element times, that is your repetition operator 5. So what it is going to do is it is going to copy it for 5 times and then combine them together. So your output is 0 repeated 5 times. So this is the same case with lists with multiple elements as well. So you need to understand that this is basically copying it 3 different times and then combining it together. That is the reason why you have the same order. So 1, 2, 3 is your original list items. So those are placed in the same order as well. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 times. And those are brought together as you are using the repetition operator. Next numbers is 99, 100, 101, 102. So next is for n in numbers, print n. As I've mentioned, for each and every iteration, the n value will be assigned to a different element in your list. So for the first iteration, the n value will have number 99. So you'll see the output 99. For the second iteration, n value is 100. You'll see 100 as its output. Third iteration, it is 101. Output is 101. Fourth iteration, it is 102. Output is 102. Okay, now let's move on to the concept of indexing. So I have already given you just a brief about what an index is. Index is basically the positional value of an element in your list. So index of the first element in the list is 0. The second element is 1. Third element is 2. And the nth element is n minus 1. So negative indexes also identify positions related to the end of the list. So -1 index identifies the last element in your list. -2 will be last from second, like second from last. -3 will be third element from when you're looking at towards the end of your list. So let's take a look at this example. You have my list is 10, 20, 30, 40. Now, if you just want to print the numbers, so when you just print my list, you will be looking at the entire list, right, along with the square brackets. But if you only want to print certain elements of your list, you can always use for loop when you want to print all the elements of your list. But what if you only want to access, let's say, your third element of your list, which has 5 elements? So in that case, you can just use the concept of index and you can print a particular element from your list instead of printing the entire contents of the list. So here, print my list 0. So when you are accessing the position 1, that is when you are accessing your element 1, that is your position 0, you will be having that 0 inside the square brackets, right, with your list variable. So the variable that is assigned to your list, that is my list here, square brackets, index, close the square bracket, comma, my list, next index, comma, my list, next index, comma, my list, next index. So once you have this statement done, the output of this statement will be for the position 0, you have your element 10. For position 1, you will see the element 20. For position 2, the element is 30. For position 3, the element is 40. So the output is 10, 20, 30, 40. Same thing when you are working with, let's say the next example, that is index is first set to 0. When you are working with the while loop. So while index is less than 4, that is your condition, print my list with index. As you have 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, index is less than 4, which is what is the index of the 4 elements? The maximum index is 3, right? So when you are printing my list index, so the first iteration, the index is 0. Next, you are incrementing the index value with 1. So now the index is 1. So 1 is less than 4. The condition is true. So the next value is 20. Now the index is 2. 2 is less than 4. Next is 30. Index is incremented. So now it is 3. 3 is less than 4, which is also true. So your output will be element 40. Now index is 4. 4 is less than 4. That is false. So the while condition is false. So you're just coming out of the while loop. That is how the execution of while loop is. If you do not understand the working of while loop, I would ask you to go back to chapter 4 and then go through the contents again. So with this, my list being 10, 20, 30, 40, if you are looking at the negative indices, so you have -1, -2, -3, and -4. So you are starting from the back. So it's basically the reverse. So you are printing 40, 30, 20, 10 as your outputs. So there is a possibility of getting exceptions or errors when you are working with lists. So, so basically indexes. So let's say you are having index set to less than 4, but what if the total number of elements in your list are only 3? Then in that case, this condition, even though it is still right, like when you're executing it, there is a possibility of getting an error, right? The error that you might get when you're working with indexes and lists is index error exception. That is when there is a problem with the total number of elements, or when you're using the wrong index, then you can get the error, index error exception. So in order to eliminate the possibility of getting the index error exception and to get the total number of elements in a list right, we can always use the total number of elements function, that is also called as the length function. So length function results the length of the sequence of such as list. Excuse me. So you have size is equal to length of my list. So earlier, let's say your my list is 10, 20, 30, 40. That is length of my list is 4 because you are having 4 elements in your list. Okay, so length function returns the total number of elements in the list. So the index of the last element will be total number of elements in the list minus 1. Thereby, you are eliminating any possible cases of having an index error exception as you are calculating the length or counting the total number of elements in the list correctly. So you have length of list minus 1 here. Next, we'll see the concept of mutable. mutability. So basically lists are mutable. I have mentioned this like maybe 3 times already. So lists can be changed. So the elements can be changed, added, edited, removed, deleted, etc. So so basically an expression such as list of 1 is equal to new value can be used when you are trying to assign a new value to your list element 1. So this we'll see more about like, how to add elements and how to change elements in your lists. But for now, whenever if let's say you have your list first value set to something, but if you want to change that into a new existing value, or if you want to update the existing value, then you can just use your variable which is assigned to your list, open brackets, like the square brackets, and the positional value or the index of that particular element number, and then is equal to new value. So this has to be like, the positional value must be valid, because as again, the positional value is also the index, right? So index must be valid, otherwise you will be seeing an index error exception. So let's take a example. So you have numbers is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you print numbers, this is what you'll see. Now numbers 0 is equal to 99. So you're basically changing the which element. You are basically changing your first element. First element has index 0. So your 1 is going to be replaced by 99. So when you print numbers 99, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice now initially your list was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After this operation has been performed, your list is no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is 99, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a representation that lists can be mutable, or this is a representation to show you that an existing element in the list can be updated. So here you are creating a list with 5 items. You're first having list with zeros and then repeating it 5 times. Now let's say you want to fill the list with all the items with 99. So here it is just 99, but what if you want to make changes to each and every element in your list? We'll be looking at some examples as well, like, from our labs. So here we had index is equal to 0, while index is less than the length of list, that is numbers in this case. Numbers and the index, or the position value of your elements of your list, is equal to the updated value. And then you are incrementing the index. So after this program is executed, your list will be 99, 99, 99, 99, 99. So basically 5 elements of 99. Now let's look at the concept of concatenation, then concatenating lists. So concatenation, I think we have already discussed concatenation in the previous chapter as well. So that is basically, it will just combine 2 things together. It is not adding anything. It is just getting one type of data and it is mixing to the same type of data. So when you are using with concatenation, you have to be careful that you are using the same data types. So lists can only be concatenated with lists. You cannot concatenate a list with a string or a list with an integer. It will give you a type error. That is because when you are trying to perform an operation between 2 different data types, that is the error that you'll get. So you can always use the augmented assignment operator for concatenation as well. So we'll see some examples. So here we have list 1 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. List 2 is 5, 6, 7, 8. When you are trying to get a list 3, which is a mix of or just combination of the list 1 and list 2, you can just use the concatenation operator, list 1 plus list 2. Now list 3 will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So whichever appears first, those elements will be appeared first. So here, if I had list 2 plus list 1, I will be seeing 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 as my output. Same thing goes with strings as well. Girls' names, boys' names, all names, girl name plus boy names. So you are seeing girls' names followed by boys' names. Same thing, you can just replace the entire existing contents of your list 1 by using the augmented assignment operator here. So list 1 plus is equal to list 2. Now the list 1 after this operation is done is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Same thing with this as well. Yeah, so here, this is a new demonstration. So earlier you were having two different types of lists. It's also the same case here, but instead of assigning a variable and then assigning that variable to your list, you're just directly concatenating a list itself. So girl names is a list. We already know that from your first statement here. Plus is equal to a list with two other names. So when you're printing the girl names now, it is no longer just Joanne, Karen, Laurie, but it also has Jenny and Kelly as its elements as well. So this is basically the brief and introduction of lists. In the next video, we'll be looking at list sizing and various methods that we can apply on lists.